Started with 900 people in 1995 inside a single room with mud floor, thatched roofs, and walls made up of dried coconut fronds, to over 140 million people in 2026 attending the mega celebration of Mahashivratri and making it at a scale comparable to Guinness World Record. And in fact, not just attending, but choosing to remain awake the entire night with over 1 lakh people joining in person and the rest joining through YouTube and other social media platforms. That too without a drop of alcohol or any other stimulants. In fact, 90% people choose to fast on that day. Isn't this insane? No, really, just look at this number carefully. If you're aware, this 140 million is far much greater than the number of live viewers in a Super Bowl. And even that's greater than the population of France and UK combined together. And not only this, it is 350 times more than the population of Iceland. And that too coming together for the purpose of dhyana and meditation. Really? Is this the same world where sleep is a luxury to escape from the daily grind? Here people are choosing to skip their sleep. This is the same world or some parallel world elsewhere? Because usually we see the people pulling all-nighters is for a Gen Z binge watch session or a stimulant fuel, tea, coffee, alcohol stimulated. But the case here is entirely different. So in today's video, we are breaking down the framework of how this happens and what truly makes this mega event actually mega, such that 140 million people choose to participate irrespective of caste, religion, and country. In this video, we will understand the phenomenon through three main pillars, in which pillar 1 talks about why do people across religion, culture, and country place such interest in one individual's word enough to act on them at the biological level. Pillar 2 talks about the steps taken in Mega Mahashivratri celebration to make it truly successful. We will know about actually what it takes for this large-scale massive celebration. And finally, Pillar 3 looks into the significance of this day. What are the different layers to it that most people have never ever examined? So the video is going to be quite interesting. Do watch the complete video. And if you love it, do not forget to give it a like and subscribe to the channel. From 900 people in 1995, 5,000 in 1996 to 11,000 in 1997 to record-breaking 50,000 in 2002, the number has always been increasing since then to a point that today we have over 140 million people in 2026, which is almost about 1.5 lakh times more from where it started. And no, this is not just the people from India. People literally joined from all around the world. And so the question now arises how 900 became 140 million. I mean, why do millions leave the comfort of their bed to sit for 12 hours straight from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m.? Is it a cult or is it a party? Or at least, from when did the planetary movement phenomenon started bothering people so much? Or is it something else entirely? To answer your question, no, it didn't happen by accident. It happened through the combination of logical disruption, digital mastery, and a physical phenomenon that people could actually feel. So first, did this growth happen because Sadhguru was persuasive? No, of course not, because persuasion alone cannot do this. Persuasion can make people attend once, but it cannot make them return year after year, or fast voluntarily, or stay awake all night, bring friends and family, and most importantly, do this without any incentives. If persuasion were enough, we would see many such events, but we don't. So something else is at work, and here the key word is compounding, not popularity. In the early years from 1995 to the late 1990s, growth happened mainly because people returned. And returning people brought small numbers of others. That tells us something very important, that the event did not grow by mass outreach. It grew by retention. And retention only happens when people feel, you know what, this actually did something to me, even if they can't explain it clearly. And that's why numbers rose every single year instead of peaking and dropping. Another reason why the numbers kept increasing every year is the consistency of message. For decades, Sadhguru has not changed the core message around Mahashivratri. The requirements are the same: wakefulness, fasting, and attention. No dilution to attract clouds, no relaxation of discipline, and no shortcuts for the convenience. So when instructions remain consistent over the long period of time, people start taking them seriously. And that's when consistency builds credibility. And that creates a strong signal. If this is still demanding after 25 to 30 years, it is probably not manipulation, because people trust systems that don't bend to popularity. But still, why did people listen to Sadhguru specifically? Well, before proceeding, if you're finding this video meaningful, please do like this video and subscribe to the channel and click on the notification bell icon. Well, the reason why people heard Sadhguru was because he did not ask for belief upfront. Sadhguru didn't convey about Mahashivratri as a Hindu festival. He pitched it as human engineering. In the early 2000s, while most spiritual leaders were talking about salvation, gods, hell and heaven, and when all the powers were in the hand of God and humans were literally the puppet of God, or at least they were depicted in that way by the priest or the spiritual leaders, Sadhguru at that time was talking about perception, clarity, well-being, responsibility, our life, our making, human beings the most powerful form, and most importantly, disrupted the concept of hell or heaven, Pap or Punya, which gave an immense amount of freedom to the people. He spoke the language of the modern scientist, but with the depth of a mystique. Secondly, he removed the barrier of belief, constantly telling people, don't believe me, just experiment it and see if it works, which attracted the skeptics, the scientists, and the majority of youth who have moved away from the traditional religion. No one here was told what to experience. In fact, people were asked to test it themselves, and that automatically filters the audience. Only those who experience something real stay. So in 1995, it was a local gathering. In 2002, when they hit 50,000, it was a national headline. And by 2026, with 140 million people, it has become the human necessity. People listen to Sadhguru because he doesn't ask for faith. He doesn't say, pray to Shiva. He simply says, keep your spine straight and use this planetary alignment to upgrade your software. And that shift from religion to engineering is why the world, from CEOs to farmer, is choosing to stay awake. That means people don't believe him first. They believe their experience first. And that's the reversal. People come skeptical. They do the process. They experience changes, clarity, alertness, balance, stability, or intensity. And once that happens, the question changes from, do I believe Sadhguru, to why did this work the way he said it would? And that's when trust begins. And this is why a single sentence from Sadhguru carries weight, not because of authority, but because people have verified smaller claims deeply. And why did it go global? Because the experience is non-cultural. There's no miracle claims here, no claiming of healing, no promises of enlightenment. In fact, you are never told what you should experience. You're only told how to keep yourself available. And this absence of pressure is exactly why trust grows. You don't need a belief system, a language, an identity, or a background. You only need the basic free tools that every individual of you have. And that is a human body, a human mind, and a human consciousness. That makes it exportable without translation. In one line, this did not grow because people believed Sadhguru. In fact, the people believed Sadhguru because the experience kept working consistently for ordinary people. And that's the uncomfortable truth for many. Now, when people hear mega event, they imagine money, marketing, and spectacle. But if Mahashivratri was powered only by money, then this section would not exist, because Mahashivratri here in Isha runs on something far rarer, and that is human willingness. Every year, tens of thousands of volunteers arrive week in advance. They do not come for recognition or access or to sit in the front row. Many of them pay their own travel. They take leave from work. Many sleep on the floor, sometimes for days. And the work is not glamorous. Some clean toilets, some wash dishes, managing crowd flow, handling lost and found, and standing for hours in silence. Some even work 18 to 20 hours a day. And yet, even if you look closely, something feels very unusual. They are not resentful or hurried or loud. There is a quiet pride, not of ownership, but of participation. For them, Mahashivratri is not something to attend, it is something to enable. They are not there to get something. They are there to make sure nothing obstructs someone else's experience. And that changes everything. Because this is not volunteering as sacrifice. This is volunteering as sadhana. And yes, volunteering is not just done by local people. People from all around the world gather and do the same, in which the film actors, business leaders, public figures also participate. No special roles or curated visibility or media movement. They stand in queues and serve food. No one is impressed, and that is precisely the point. Because outside, identity is currency, but here, identity dissolves. And in fact, many of them say the same thing, that this is the only place I can disappear. That disappearance is not loss, it is relief. So yes, Mahashivratri at Isha is mega for a different reason. In fact, for 1 week, a temporary city comes alive. Water system, medical infrastructure, electricity grids, emergency services. Everyone, from a villager to a film star, sits on the same ground. Crowd movement is choreographed, sound is not amplified unnecessarily, and silence is protected. Every detail there asks one single question: does this support human receptivity? And thus, it is not event management, it becomes human management at a civilizational scale. Because at Isha, Mahashivratri not symbolic. It is engineered. The space itself is consecrated. The sounds are designed, not decorative, and the sequence of events follows a precise energetic logic. Even cultural performances, they are tools to keep the body awake and the mind engaged without any agitation. And in the center of it all is Adiyogi, the 112 feet Guinness World Record blissful statue of Shiva, not as an idol for worship, but as a reminder of what a human being can become. So, actually, the numbers is not the achievement. What actually matters is this: millions of people choose stillness over stimulation on the same night, and that is unprecedented in modern human society. And now, if you have stayed till here, don't drop, just stay for a little more time, and you will know that infrastructure alone is not actually that makes this Mahashivratri a mega event. What makes this unprecedented is this: on this one night, the millions of people are not just watching, they are offered tools, not any symbol, blessing, or belief system. Actual inner technology, and that also totally free. At Mahashivratri, several offerings are made that usually requires years of preparation or personal access. And yet, here they are distributed openly without any discrimination or qualification. One such important offering is Rudraksh Diksha. A consecrated bead traditionally associated with Shiva is offered not as ornamentation but as a support system for one's inner stability. Well, there is no compulsion, conversion, or obligation. The intention is very simple: to give people a physical anchor that subtly supports balance, receptivity, and well-being. Another offering is the midnight meditation. This is not a guided motivation, not a motivational exercise. It is held precisely at the time when the night reaches its energetic peak. Millions sit together just chanting and making the vibration without any intention of wanting something, just available to the alignment. And the third and the very first time which is going to happen is Maha Abhishekam. Not as a ritualistic spectacle, but as a way of intensifying the consecrated presence of the space. Water, sound, and form come together not to appease any deity, but to amplify the feel for those present. Well, none of these are compulsory. And that's the most important part. Nothing here is imposed. Everything is offered. And in the world where spirituality is actually sold, gated, or restricted, this openness itself becomes revolutionary. And that is why this is mega. And at last, the most important comes the Maha Annadhanam, that is feeding without any question. One of the largest operations during Mahashivratri is food. Not any packaged meals, not any symbolic offerings. Fresh, hot, and nourishing food served freely. People aren't served by asking who are they, where are they from, or what do they believe. Because food is not charity here, it is inclusion. So during Mahashivratri, the scale of Mahanadhanam is massive, but the spirit remains intimate. You're not being helped, you are actually being hosted. And at this point, it becomes very clear that this is not just a festival. There's no climax, no takeaway souvenirs, or no emotional high, only clarity. Just the possibility that something inside you became a little less noisy and a little more aligned. Now there is one important question that needs to be addressed here. Why offer initiations so freely on Mahashivratri? Well, traditionally, initiations were selective. They require preparation, commitment, and often years of discipline. So, why do Sadhguru opens the door so wide on this particular night? The reason lies in the nature of Mahashivratri itself. This night does not demand any effort. This supports receptivity. Think of it like this. If a door is heavy, you need strength to push it open. But if the door is already open, even a gentle step forward is enough. Mahashivratri is that open door. The intentions behind providing Rudraksh Diksha or midnight meditations or Abhishekams is not to turn people into yogis overnight. It is to give them a taste, a reference point, and a possibility they can return to later. No one is told you must continue. No one is told you will lose something if you stop. Because initiation here is not about obligation, it is about orientation. Once you know that something within you can be stable, silent, and clear, even briefly, you can never fully forget it. And that memory alone is enough to begin a journey. And this is why the offerings are free. Because Mahashivratri itself is free. No human created it and no institution owns it. So the question arises that are people really influenced by the planetary alignment, or is it just exaggerated? Well, yes, planetary alignment does influence the human system subtly, mechanically. Why? Because the human body is not isolated. Your body is 70% water. The moon affects the ocean, and the same gravitational force affects the fluid inside you. This is not spirituality. This is physics. Even modern science accepts circadian rhythms, sleep cycles, hormonal rhythms. All of this respond to the planetary and lunar cycles. What yogic science adds is just this, that when gravitational and lunar forces reach a certain balance, the spinal system becomes naturally more perceptive. You don't suddenly feel something divine. You feel slight restless if you sleep. You show alertness if you stay upright, and that makes easier inward attention. Most people really don't experience this because they are sleeping. And so, why does this suddenly matters to people so much? The answer is very simple. Most of the year, you are fighting gravity. On this day, the upward energy movement is assisted, not restricted. You need less effort to stay aware, and there is less friction inside your system. Think of it like this. If you try to swim upstream every day, you won't notice the river much. But one day, when the current flows with you, suddenly effort drops. And that drop in effort feels significant. And that's why yogis noticed this night thousands of years ago. Different cultures marked it differently, but the night itself remains the same. In one line, Mahashivratri wasn't declared, it was observed. And finally, most important, when Sadhguru points about Mahashivratri, about the spine, the reason to stay awake, it is not mere exaggeration. It is not a new invention by him. He is repeating what yogic science has already said thousands of years ago, but in a modern language, which today we have forgotten in our modern so-called society. In the classic yogic text, the spine is Meru, the cosmic axis, and the human system is seen as a miniature cosmos, and therefore alignment of the body equals to alignment with the larger forces. And this is why no lying down, no sleep, and no heavy food. These rules existed long before Sadhguru. What he did was just remove the superstition part of it and explain it mechanically. And why do we bow down to Shiva on this day? Because Shiva represents mastery over alignment. He is called Adiyogi not because he was born first, but because he discovered the mechanics of human consciousness. And this is very much crucial because Shiva did not teach all the time. He only taught when alignment made transmission effortless. And Mahashivratri symbolizes that very moment. So Mahashivratri is not something about planets doing something to you. In fact, it is about you stopping your existence for one night. And Shiva is not worshipped because he controls the cosmos. He is revered because he has mastered the alignment with it. And that is why this attracts people of all the religion. Because alignment is not Hindu, spine is not Hindu, and stillness is not Hindu. A Christian monk sitting silently all night is silently doing Shivratri, whether he calls it that or not. And to understand why Sadhguru holds Mahashivratri every year, we must first understand what he does not do. He does not hold position as a savior. He does not ask for alliance. He does not build dependency. And still, he does this relentless effort. Because Mahashivratri is not something humans invented. It is a naturally occurring opening. So from a yogic perspective, not using this night would be irresponsible. Imagine knowing this, that once in a year, the soil becomes unusually fertile. You don't force the seeds to grow. You simply make them available, right? And this is what this night is all about. Sadhguru often says, if you miss Mahashivratri, you miss a cosmic opportunity. Not because something bad will happen, but because something possible did not happen. And finally, every year, Mahashivratri is same in essence and different in impact. The scale changes, participation expands, and global reach increases. Some people attend physically, others participate online, across continents, time zone, and culture. The important thing to understand is this. Physical presence amplifies intensity, but availability determines depth. Whether you are sitting in Isha or in your own room thousands of kilometers away, the night remains what it is for every one of us. The invitation remains the same. Stay awake, stay alert, stay upright. And with this, finally closing the video, if you found this valuable, do share this video as much as possible. And also, if you wish to contribute for Mahanandanam, link is there in the description. And if you want Sadhguru doing Abhishekam with your or your family member's name, do register it in the link in the description below. And finally closing it, if you loved the video, do not forget to give it a like, share and subscribe. Up to next, stay safe, healthy, happy. Namaskaram.